Hey, what's going on everyone? Jakestin here today with a new video, and today we are going to be discussing this weird, out of nowhere, and really strange topic that I feel like this sort of thing should really be addressed. It may not really sound like a big deal, but it's kind of weird and creepy. Now, sometimes in Bob's Burgers, there are a lot of things that have never been revealed, some left unanswered and unexplained. Like for example, what's even under Louise's hat? Because we still don't know what her hair even looks like. I mean, what's even wrong with her hair? And another unsolved mystery is why can't we see Principal Spore's face? But those are not the things we will be talking about for this video, because today folks, we are going to be talking about the Walnut Briefcase in Bob's Burgers. This weird mystery is in Season 12, Episode 14 titled Video Killed the Genio Star. Now this episode has both an A plot and a B plot. The A plot is about Courtney Wheeler trying to get Gene Belcher to be part of a music video. And they had to film it at their own school because the title of the song they're doing is called Locker Love. Which Gene just doesn't want to do at all, because not only does he not like Courtney, he just hates how the song is.
You know that it's flirtation when I do my combination.
Gene and Courtney do have a really weird relationship if you ask me. They have had some strange moments throughout the show, some weird and some that are pretty toxic. But we're not going to be focusing on that today, because the main topic we're all here for is the B plot. And the B plot is about Linda and Teddy being curious about this person's briefcase that was left in the restaurant. Now first I'm going to recap the story of the side plot, just to give context. It starts off where Linda was serving a burger to this one business looking guy, and she immediately started getting nosy about him, just because he was a business person that barely talked to her, and was eating by himself. Linda and Teddy were both being weirded out about it, and for some reason they just kept on staring at him. Later on, the guy leaves the restaurant, but he forgot his briefcase. Linda tries to return it to him, but the guy was already gone. Bob, Linda, and Teddy looked at the briefcase, and it had the guy's phone number on there, as well as his name. The person's name was actually Billy Bandana, and that made Linda and Teddy even more suspicious about the guy. Bob tries to call him, but instead he gets a message saying that the number he was trying to call was no longer in service. And what Linda suggested on what to do with the briefcase was pretty dumb, because instead of putting the briefcase in like a lost and found section, I know they don't have one, but they should have at least made one. Linda decided to get Teddy and herself interested to open the briefcase just to see what's in it. Because the guy that left the briefcase in the restaurant already had a lot of red flags put up. Like first of all, this guy's name is Billy Bandana. Now the name Billy Bandana does sound like a cool name at first, but it also sounds just completely fake. It almost sounds like a cover-up name, like this person just doesn't want to be identified in certain cases. I don't know if it's really his real name, but spoiler alert, it was never revealed whether that person's name is real or fake. It's still a complete mystery. And second, he's a mysterious business person that walked in the restaurant, ordered a burger, barely even said a lot of stuff while he was eating, and then just left the restaurant, forgetting to take his briefcase with him. And because of all that, it got Linda and Teddy to try and find out what was in it. This actually goes on for the entire B-plot of the episode, where Linda and Teddy would constantly try to find ways to get the briefcase open, and Bob would always get annoyed by the whole thing, and he wanted Linda and Teddy to not go through this guy's personal stuff. The next day, Teddy arrives at the restaurant, and he actually bought a briefcase from a thrift store, and he put in some basic business work related stuff in it, and he had the idea to measure the weight of both briefcases to see if they perhaps feel the same weight. That's honestly the most dumbest science experiment I've ever heard. Because how would you know what's right and what's wrong if you tried something like that? You would have no idea what are the right results. Anyways, back to the main subject. Teddy and Linda lifted both cases and definitely feel that there is something different in the guy's briefcase. But Bob thinks that maybe the guy's only holding some different amount of business stuff in it. But Linda and Teddy thought that maybe the briefcase could be holding something strange and supernatural in there. Like something that Billy Bandana, if that's even his real name, doesn't want the public to know about. But later on, Linda and Teddy then tried to guess the combination on the briefcase, but Bob wanted them to stop. And he thinks that pretty much whatever's locked in the briefcase, pretty much the guy had a very good reason to lock it. Like maybe it could have been some important papers that he was going to submit to a board meeting. But Linda and Teddy still don't believe it's any of that kind of stuff. Now, it would look like that Linda and Teddy would eventually stop at some point, right? They would just stop being nosy about the briefcase and leave this guy's personal stuff alone. Nope, things got even more out of hand. Because it turns out Teddy then brought his own tools and tried to get the briefcase open by force, but he ends up accidentally damaging the hinge of it after Bob burst it in. Teddy tried to fix the hinge, but it wouldn't go back on, so he tried everything he could to fix it, but instead, he ends up breaking off the hinge and gets the case to crack open a little bit. So that's when Linda had the excuse to see what was in the briefcase, and then she actually tried to force it to open. And we finally have our answer on what was in it. It was walnuts. Just nothing but walnuts. And just like that, Linda and Teddy had the answer to all of their questions. There was nothing supernatural or dark or mysterious inside the briefcase. It was all just walnuts. But Bob, however, found it super creepy and not normal, because who on earth would carry a locked up briefcase around with nothing in it but walnuts? I mean, it sounds super strange if you ask me. Bob was really creeped out that he was actually even more creeped out about the walnuts, way more than the theories Linda and Teddy had of what they thought could have been in the briefcase. As we come back to the segment, Teddy does try to fix it, but not that well, since all he tried to do was get all the walnuts back in the case and only use duct tape to get it to close. And since the guy was coming back, there was no time to fix it. So Teddy left it in the same booth the person was eating in and tried to use a dumb excuse to leave. But he was forced to stay. The guy went to get his briefcase back and he immediately realized about the duct tape and dents on it, but Linda had to come up with a dumb lie, and Teddy and Bob had to follow along with it as well. But then Bob accidentally steps on a walnut that Teddy forgot to put in the briefcase with all the other nuts. And Bob had to lie and say that it could have been something else, which the guy actually believed. And since there are no questions to be asked, the guy left the restaurant with his briefcase. And that was it. Now that was super strange. We never got the explanation for what was the point with all the walnuts in the locked briefcase. Was this guy part of a business that involves walnuts? That would make sense, because if he was part of that kind of business, then pretty much this person was carrying them because they were his samples from being a walnut salesman. Or he just really likes walnuts. I've looked it up and there are actually walnut factories that exist. They have a huge process of making sure the nuts are of very good quality. So if this guy Billy Bandana does happen to work at a walnut factory, then maybe that will explain everything. But since it was never confirmed if he happens to actually work for that kind of business, that does open the door to so many questions. I mean, what kind of business is this guy part of? I honestly don't know the whole point here. I do have a theory that maybe this guy was a failed comedian, and he would have a joke by saying business was nuts, and he would open up the briefcase with all the walnuts inside. Or maybe the walnuts were meant to be his lunch during work. I think the whole point of this segment was that it was only just for comedy, to highlight the absurdity of a man carrying a briefcase full of nothing but walnuts, and have it never officially explained. Pretty much this episode intentionally only left the reason a mystery, which was the source of its humor. And another question is, was Billy Bandana really his real name? So many questions left unanswered. And since this episode came out 3 years ago as the time of this video, I don't think we'll ever get an answer anytime soon. Unless if this guy actually does come back in a future episode, and maybe we could most likely get an answer, but as of now, it's still unknown. If you have any possible theories on what was the whole point of the whole walnuts thing, feel free to comment down below. Thank you for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe. Turn on that notification bell to never miss any future uploads. Thanks for watching and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.